Hey guys, this video I'm going to attempt to get the other side done just like this, with this side plate on and the front plate on, and I'm also going to attempt to get this plate at least close to being fit on that side. I also wanted to share with you a small tip. Some of you guys may know about this. When we do this plate, we have a template that fits the car perfectly the way we want it to. This was actually the shape of that strut tower originally. I traced it out and had it cut out, and looking at it, it just didn't look that great, and it was also going to interfere with this angle. It was going to interfere with my wheel travel, so I decided to put a little bit of a straight edge on it and then make it a little bit of a nicer curve rather than have this falling angle and then the curve. So I redid my template, laid it out, and as you can see, this has got a nice curve and it straightens out. This that overhangs a little bit, that's not going to be a worry, because this was originally going to go all the way to the end of the upper apron bar. So I'm actually going to have to cut this back to around here somewhere. So that really doesn't matter that this is hanging over. I don't have to add a piece or anything like that. But the small tip that I have for you guys is, if you have a piece of steel and you have a decently large template and you want to trace it onto a piece of steel, and you're trying to hold it with one hand and draw with the other, and sometimes the template moves as you're drawing along it and you don't realize it until you get somewhere else, and at that point you've already drawn the line crooked all the way down. Doing it this way will help with that. These are just some rare earth magnets. These actually came out of a headliner on a Chevy Equinox. If you just take one, get your corners lined up nice and straight, stick the magnet on, make sure this side's lined up nice and straight, grab another magnet, and then any other loose edges you can just hold down with your extra magnets. And then you can trace that template. Sorry about that, camera cut out. As I was saying, once you have that template on here, it's all held down. Actually, I could use one right here. It's held down nice and tight. You can just take your scribe or your marker and draw right along that edge. And then you can just cut right along that edge, and you have a perfect marked piece of steel that matches your template exactly. So I'm going to go grab a Sharpie real quick and trace this out. And then I think we're going to cut this first. I'll be right back. Well, as you can see, I used my little trick there. Held that perfectly. Traced that line. Nice, the template never moved. Trace this line again, template never moved. So now all I have to do is cut it out. Another little tip for some people that may not know this: if you're trying to cut a curve like this with a cutoff wheel, obviously you know a cutoff wheel always wants to try to cut straight. One of the best things you can do for this is just cut a slot up from the bottom to your line, and just do that every ½ inch or so all the way down your curve, and then as you come up with the cutoff wheel, it'll make making that curve a little bit easier with the cutoff wheel. As you go along those slots that you made, each piece will drop off, and it'll make it a little bit easier to get that cutoff wheel in there at a little bit more of an angle. The only thing you're going to watch there is you're probably going to be focused on the front side of the cutoff wheel. You also have to pay attention to the back side of the cutoff wheel, so you don't come back into your curve and make a line this way. Just takes time and getting it right. It's pretty easy. It's not too terrible. It's a really good tip for cutting curves like this. Otherwise, could take you a really long time to get this curve in here, and it probably won't come out the greatest without using that slot method. So I'm going to get this cut real quick, and then I'll bring you guys right back. This is what I meant when I said cutting slots in this piece. As you can see, cut a slot every ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch. Now I'll just put this back in the vise and cut on my line, and as I cut, those pieces will just fall off and make it a lot easier to get around that curve. I'm gonna try to get you guys set up somewhere so you can see this. So I'll be right back. Unfortunately, I couldn't really find a good spot for you guys. As you can see, curve came out pretty decent. Could use a little touching up right here. Nothing too crazy. The other thing to remember too, though, some of these plates, if you're making mount plates for any kind of tie-in or anything like that, you're gonna MIG weld the edges. So a lot of the edges, they don't have to be perfectly straight. The weld is gonna wash away the edge. So you're never gonna see if you had a little bobble in the cut. But obviously if it's something that's an edge that's not gonna get welded, you wanna keep that edge nice and clean. I'm gonna clean this edge up just a little bit more. I'm gonna make a mark to cut the end off up here, and then I'll bring you guys right back so you can see it up against the car. Here we are, guys. Plates fitted. Fits along that bottom curve decently. I did have to trim just a little bit right here, not much. There's a little bit of a gap there for that weld to go in there. This fits up decent. Obviously this is gonna have to be bent around as I weld. I'll probably weld down this seam and then across here, probably to about here. And then I'll try to clamp it up as best as I can in the corners and tap this edge around to curve it around. The other thing that's going to end up happening is this corner is going to be above the strut tower. So what I end up doing there is I curl it around, I weld as much as I can where it fits decent, and then where this starts to be above the strut tower, I just come over with the grinder and grind that edge down until it fits flush or a little bit lower than flush with the top of the frame, the top of the strut tower, sorry. And once it's down, I can just finish my weld off and then go down the edge here and across here. I also, on the other side, put a little bead right in here just to stitch the sheet metal to my new plate. The only reason why this plate is really here is because someone else welded a plate here, and I had to do a lot of grinding and cutting to get the pieces off. So this is kind of like a beauty plate and a strengthening plate. Realistically, it probably only really needed to be this big from here to here for my tube front to land on, and then this one would have been here to go to the front for the radiator support. Really, you kind of want your tube front, you want the structural bar, really you want it to land more on this seam or a little bit to the outside edge of this seam, because this is the actual upper frame rail on this car. This is just sheet metal for the strut tower, so there really isn't any structure here. It's literally just holding the strut in place where it should be. Structurally, you really want to build off of something that's strong and can not necessarily take a hit, but is part of the main structure of the car. It'll fare a little bit better if you do get into an accident. If you have a bar that's welded somewhere on the strut tower and mid-tandem someone spins out in front of you and it pushes this bar back, it's going to push that bar back as far as it wants to go, and it's going to mess with this strut tower. It's going to move the upper strut mount location, and that's going to mess with your alignment, and the car will never drive straight until you get this pulled back into place. So now that this is fit, I think I'm going to move on to the end of the frame horn. Here I'm just going to end up slicing the top of this radiator support sheet metal off of the frame itself, and then I can put my L-shaped bracket on. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of trimming because my bracket has a square edge on it right now. This side you can kind of see I did grind it down a little bit. It did at one point reach almost all the way to this edge, so I had to cut a little bit off. There's a little angle here and then it straightens out, so I had to cut that down and follow that angle a little bit. So I'm gonna do the same thing to the other side real quick, and I'll bring you guys back after I get that all set up, ready to weld. Another thing, guys, if you're welding plates to any sheet metal, any frame part, and it's going to be your plate on top of another plate, it's always a good idea to use weld-through primer. It's going to protect the two plates. It'll help stop the moisture that can form between the two of them getting in and making the bare metal rust. A lot of the times what I end up doing is grinding something down like this, prepping it to weld, and then I will spray the whole thing down with weld-through primer, take my part, in this case this L-shaped piece. When I get it all fit up, I'll grind all the edges that I'm going to weld on, inside and out, and then I will spray the whole inside of this piece just to make sure that it's fully protected when I get ready to put it on and weld it in place. Obviously I do the same here. That's just an extra step to help preserve some of your work. Alright, so here it is. It's all trimmed up, ready to be tacked in. As you can see, it follows that line nicely. For the spacing on the end here, all I did was take one of my plates that's going to go here, and I set it up against the end of the rail and slid the plate back until it overhung this just a little bit and gave me a little bit of overhang on this plate to make a nice open joint to weld this plate to here. So after that, I just clamped it down, checked my gaps. That gap's fine. Top and bottom is good. This side, top and bottom, is good. This side and the back, the gap's a little wider than I'd like it, but it'll work. So I'm gonna get that all welded in, and I'll bring you guys back to take a look at how it came out. Here we are, guys. This side's all welded. Well, partially welded. Half welded, I guess you could say. This side's half welded as well. I just got to, when I cut the rest of the lower reinforcement off, I got a weld on the back side of the plate to here. And then same thing on this side. And then on the bottom as well, obviously. And then finish up this edge. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please share this with your friends. See you in the next one.